Yeah, I hope we can all hear me now. So, hello everyone, you're welcome to another session of on the OH Academy platform, where we'll be talking about the market outlook today. And we have talking about marketing OH 2023 outlook, and we have seasoned professionals here, to be discussing this with us. My name is Ohiare. I work with Global Outdoor Systems, a member of the PMG, and we have Emmanuel Adediran, who will be a presenter showing us the projection in this session today. And we have 3 panelists. Funny enough, 2 of them have the same name. We have Temitope Ayanbade of MediaREACH. We have Temitope Sani-Wahaab of PhD Media. And then we have Chudi Obiora. So you're welcome of Mindshare. You're welcome, everyone welcome once again. So I'm just going to be introducing the presenter and the panelists to us briefly. So Emmanuel Adediran of Acuity Media, we're presenting to us the projection today, is regarded as a trendsetter in Africa's peculiar marketing communication landscape. Emmanuel is an integrated marketing strategy consultant with over a decade experience. He'll be showing us the projections today as we go ahead in this. Welcome, Emmanuel Adediran. And then also we have Temitope Ayanbade of MediaREACH. Temitope is a deputy media buying strategy at MediaREACH, and he's worked with great brands like of Reckitt Benckiser, Diageo, Unilever, and then of course Godrej, to name but a few. And then we have Temitope Sani-Wahaab. Temitope Sani-Wahaab, as we all know, or maybe we don't all know, but I know, he's a team lead in OH in PhD, and he's handled brands like the likes of MTN and Unilever, Ariston Thermo, Moe and NSC, Pernod Ricard, just to mention but a few. And of course, the last and definitely not the least is Mr. Chudi Obiora, and is a marketing and media guru who has years of experience, and he has shown track records in brand building and innovative media and solution. He's the MD of Mindshare Media. Welcome our panelists and welcome our presenter.
You're welcome, Hannah. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we go ahead, I would like to say a big shout out and a happy birthday to Mr. Yinka Akintayo, Senior Manager buying MediaREACH. Let's show a wave of our hands to show that we appreciate one of the trendsetters in this industry. Happy birthday, Mr. Yinka Akintayo. So thank you everyone once again. We're just going to go ahead, with our projection, which will be taken by Emmanuel Adediran. So Emmanuel, if you're ready, you can take it on from here.
Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon or good evening.
We can hear you now.
Yeah. I need to be able to share my screen. Please let me know when you can see it. Okay. Okay. Just
Hi, Emmanuel, you can try to share your screen now.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Please let me know you can see my screen. What do you have on the screen right now?
We can see your screen, Emmanuel, yes. 2023 trends for OH, yeah. Yeah.
Right, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. I wouldn't want to take much of our time for this session. So I'm just going to be sharing a few thoughts, with us here on perspective on the trends that we could look out for as it applies to out-of-home media for Nigeria. Maybe if we have enough time, we can take questions and discuss further. But I'll just run through because I'm told we don't have much time for this presentation. So I'll get right into it. First off, we'll be looking at the election landscape in Nigeria as we have it today. Unless you are living under a rock in this country, you know that 2023 is the election year. And contrary to certain, or what we would expect, there's been a lot of interesting twists and turns. This on the screen here is the published calendar for the elections. And what was different this year is the fact that election campaign started much earlier than the previous years. But if you were to look at trend of the last few elections and this one, a couple of things, get my attention. And the first is in the last two elections, the share of political advertising relative to the entire media investment, pan-Nigeria for 2015 was 10%. For 2019, it was about 2%. And that's largely because there was really not an election in quotes because it was almost a guarantee that the incumbent was going to come to power. But coming to 2023, there's been a projection that that's going to come to about 6%. But with what we're seeing right now, it appears that the value would actually be much lower than what we were seeing or what we had projected for the year. And a couple of reasons why that is the case, right? I think everyone on this call would agree with me that the level of buzz, that would have anticipated for the 2022-2023 election has not been at the level that it should be. We're also seeing increased regulations, around the process of advertising political campaigns today. Not to mention the other environmental factors that I wouldn't want to mention on this call. If you also look at the GDP growth, typically you would have the country going into recession just right after the elections. But looking at the numbers, yeah, we have high inflation and all, which I'm going to talk about much later, but there's a projection that for this year and next, we're actually going to be in the positives, speaking about our economic growth rates. So the trend here basically is that elections this year will not follow the typical trends as we've seen it. And there are far-reaching implications, for this particular trend. First off is the fact that most brands, as we know, would have planned not to do much in the first quarter of the year, trying to stay away from the political clutter that was anticipated. And you and I are in Q1 January, as we know, with just a few weeks to the election, it doesn't seem to be like, what we have. And that would definitely have an implication on our out-of-home partners, right? Or the industry in general. Yeah, typically, this impact would not affect OOH spend so much. But what we are projecting is we'll likely see a case where you have the big players, right, getting the lion's share, and the other smaller ones not exactly being able to get so much, because it just seems like the usual political dollars or naira as we see it is not flowing around in the direction that it should go. Moving on to the next point, you see that headline inflation in Nigeria today is actually at its highest level in decades, right? The economic indices, as we have it, both from an African, Nigerian perspective, appears to be quite different. And there are a number of underlying reasons, behind this, okay? First off is the global happenings around the world. The war in Ukraine disrupted global chain of logistics and several other things. And being an import-driven economy, that had severe impact, on us in market. The central bank and the recent policies, as we've seen in the last 1 year, is also one of the major challenges that has led to this inflation. There's been a lot of pressure on the naira. The naira fell really badly to the dollar, over the last 1 year, getting to levels that no one would have anticipated, this to happen. The resultant implication is, rather than the Ukraine war and the energy crisis being a blessing for us, it actually turned to be the exact opposite, because we import, the refined crude oil that we that we consume in markets. And that, of course, led to a severe energy crisis in Nigeria. If you check the chart on my right, the price of diesel in the between 2021 to 2022 has more than doubled, and with the current situation of things right now, we're not even sure whether or not, petrol is now coming up as well. But the implication of this is actually put a lot of pressure on consumers and businesses alike. The cost of running business has increased significantly. Cost of food has also been on the rise, thanks to the flooding, the farmer herder crisis, and a couple of the issues that I have highlighted in this document. Now, the chart you have on the left looks at, excuse me, just a minute. Yeah. Sorry, just a minute. I'm having a bit of, okay, yeah. So ad investment is expected to grow globally, as well as in Nigeria. But the difference here is, for 2023, we're forecasting that growth rate will be much slower than the past 2 years. Yes, 2021 was post-COVID, there was a huge surge, but those numbers are beginning to normalize and acclimatize right now. And we're seeing that in Nigeria, although the investment level would slightly be much more than we had in 2022, the growth rate is actually slowing down gradually. And this happens to be in opposite direction with the annual inflation, okay? We've talked about, the headline inflation and all, and what are the implications of this for us in the media? The truth is, we're already seeing it, okay? There's going to be media inflation, severe media inflation, as we've already started seeing coming from 2022 into 2023. And from our projections, out of home, OH, is actually going to lead this media inflation trend, projected to be within the range of about 35%. And the reason is not far-fetched, right? Most of especially the LED, which are the premium priced platforms, are run 24 hours by diesel. So if the cost of diesel has more than doubled between last year and this year, definitely we can expect, that cost will be passed on to the advertisers. This will be putting marketers in a dilemma, because now we're now being forced, to do a lot more with quite little. All right. And when this happens, you definitely get to see trade-offs beginning to happen. And we're projecting that, we'll have a case of a double jeopardy, because the bigger guys will definitely get the lion's share, and the much smaller people or partners or media owners tend to go under. So you begin to see cases where good to haves will no longer make it into the media plans, because we have to optimize our budget to deliver the maximum ROI. Please let me know if I'm doing good or badly with time, okay? So the trend here is, yes, media inflation levels will exceed previous years, and out of home will be leading the charge, being the highest. The next point here is, if you look at the chart on my left, this is a trend of the reach of media from 2013 to 2021. And I think the key takeout here is basically that traditional advertising will still remain a very relevant platform for reach for most advertisers and marketers, all right? And the study by Nelson that was done last year also points to the fact that TV and out of home, okay, are one of the most trusted advertising channels by Nigerians, with out of home actually accounting for 92%. This is quite instructive for most marketers, and it just points to the fact that contrary to assertions that, oh, you know, traditional is going under, the relevance still remains, okay? However, the major challenge that we'll be facing currently being faced with is that although traditional channels deliver reach, okay, and they are trusted, the consumers themselves are being distracted. And you would find that attention span over the last decade has dropped significantly, dropping from as high as 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds in 2022. And when you now come to the advertising impression, the numbers even crash further, with 3.5 seconds being the average duration you have to make an impression on a consumer. That being said, we're also grappling with the challenges of fragmentation, okay? Fragmentation simply speaks to the fact that people are not consuming one channel with undivided attention. They are now, consuming multiple channels at the same time, and this is affecting the attentive reach, of advertisers to be able to get across to consumers. The chart in the middle was done sometimes around last year, around the World Cup, and we tried to find out from consumers, what they do during a live match, okay? And we find that over 60% of the viewers of these live matches are busy doing other things while they are watching. The implication of this is your ability to reach your consumers or your target market with your communication via this channel is heavily impacted. And this is not peculiar to television alone. Out of home is also not immune, because now it's not even about, the general things that distract. We are now also contending with other platforms or other channels. And mobile, of course, is principal amongst these sources of, distractions. So the trend here is, okay, in this attention economy that we found ourselves, okay, if well executed, out of home will be a very big winner, okay, in this season that we found ourselves. Because the truth is, fragmentation remains one of the biggest challenges that keeps marketers awake. Yes, I can put my adverts on TV, I can run my jingles on radio, or have my billboards. Are we sure that these guys are paying attention to the message that we want to pass across? And we say that out of home actually is going to be winning big. And why is this so? The simple reason is because that is one media channel where you cannot exactly turn off. All right, with the click of a button on my remote, I can switch in between media channels. With a click of a button, I can skip an ad on YouTube. I can tune to the next radio station, and miss a jingle. But with out of home, well done, and impactfully, it's right there in your face. In the words of Outsmart, the UK, body for out of home, it says where OOH really comes into its own in this digital age is that it has that power to cut through the noise and grab the consumer's attention with unrivaled creativity. And it becomes a very strong pillar for brand building in the long run. So there's still very much a room, for out of home to remain relevant as we navigate these waters of declining attention economy. However, in Nigeria today, the question remains that will out of home lose its relevance? The answer is yes, okay? And I know that would be a bit shocking, but it's not an entire yes, it's yes and a no. Yes, in the sense that boring out of home, cliche out of home executions of formats are going to lose relevance in this market, because the job to be done really is looking out for better ways, okay, to do what we have always done before. At the end of the day, I'll always tell marketers that marketing is essentially the same thing. You're trying to get the communication of your brand or whatever it is across to an intended target audience through a particular channel or medium in the hopes that it take an action that you feel is of commercial importance. That essentially has not changed, but the way we go about it has evolved over time. And it's the same thing for out of home as well, okay? And what is this really pointing to? It's pointing to the fact that innovative out of home would always remain relevant and even increase in relevance in markets. And interestingly, we have seen a couple of this in the last 1 year. Okay. I'm just going to try and run through. The first one on my screen here is a particular billboard that lights up, that was executed for Guinness. We have another one here where, it's like a projection on a wall. These are market first, that we're seeing in Nigeria today. And these really represent the future of out-of-home investments as we go into 2023. The third one here was one that was executed last year using drones, to run a campaign for Amazon Prime sometime last year. This went quite viral, all right? So the point is innovations, okay, is actually going to be increased in demand going into next year. Brands are actually literally going to be demanding for a lot more from the out-of-home industry, because we want to cut through the clutter, we want to maximize our return on investment, and we cannot continue to do things the same way that we have done it. So I'm saying to the entire industry to brace up, because whether you like it or not, we're going to come knocking on your doors, demanding for these innovations. The next point, which is, I think, an age-long conversation, is around measurements, okay? Nigeria today, the market and the industry has, advanced in terms of technology, access to richer consumer data, maybe not at the level of the global market or more advanced market, but there's been significant improvement. But the challenge still remains that accurate out-of-home measurement is a play. We've still not been able to crack, this black box. And there are so many reasons which I'm not going to go into, which I'm sure a lot of the industry experts understand what I'm talking about. Okay. The point is, which is this next trend, the need for marketers to effectively measure ROI is going to result in the upsurge of certain formats for out of home. And what am I driving at? Okay. We've seen cases where, yes, we know we cannot measure effectively, just like we have on TV, radio, and other channels. But we're going to be seeing an increasing request for out-of-home executions that are linked to other channels. And that's what I term by bridge formats. Okay, so take, for example, rather than just running a campaign where I can't get stats, right? We'll be looking at an outdoor execution where you are linking OOH and digital. So take, for example, you have your QR code, all right, on the billboards, where you are able to use that as a form of benchmarking, some form of response, right? Or would I say return on the ad investment. We're also going to be seeing an increase in engagement formats, all right, where you leverage artificial augmented reality, with out of home. So you are basically linking up OOH and BTL, okay? And then you also have real-time AI-led executions where out of home handshakes with social and digital. And the reason is simply because marketers would no longer be as tolerant as we used to be, to the fact that, oh yes, I can't measure, but there's an estimate, blah, blah, blah. With increase and advancement in access to data, we'll be looking out for alternative ways to measure these ROIs. This is actually a video of an AR.
The World Cup is just around the corner. How can you capitalize on this? Check this out. You can run branded, high retention engagement campaigns with engagement analytics around you and your audience's shared love for football at key locations like the Ikeja City Mall and much more.
Okay.
Gain brand exposure and drive home your campaign message.
Like I said, an example of an engagement format. We're going to be having a lot more of this because we need to be able to measure. And where we're not able to measure directly on out of home, the idea would be to link the out of home execution to other channels that can be measured so that we're able to get some form of response. Key to note, however, is there are certain guidelines, right, when it comes to innovations around out of home. Key points that we should have at the back of our minds as we get ready for some of these innovative ideas is planning for consumer attention, all right? Planning for media convergence, okay? Also looking at the market first, like, because the job basically is to cut through the clutter. So if something has not been done before, there are much higher chances, you know, now that the clients will be more amenable, and the opportunity to measure would always stand out. I mean, whatever outdoor solutions is being provided. I'm aware that there are some platforms that, you know, are able to measure, but the more of these things we're able to do, the more irresistible, what's the word now? Relationship, I said relationship, the more likely the brands are going to embrace, you know, this particular solutions that we are proposing, okay? Now, finally, I think my last, what's the word, trend, will be speaking mainly to collaboration. Please confirm you can see my screen. Can't tell, seems to be hanging up a bit here. Hello?
Your screen is visible.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but it's still hanging on the guidelines. Innovate along the lines of,
no.
yeah.
Not to have changed. Okay. I think the last point basically will be around collaboration, okay, upskilling and partnerships. This will be extremely critical to drive success, both of course at a business level, agency level, and client level when you speak to out of home. Yeah, we know that when you come for trends like this, you want to hear the next big thing, you know, and something that's hyperfalutin up there and all. But the key takeout for me, right, which I want to leave with a lot of us, is for some of the points that we've called out to be fully effective, we need to embrace a culture of collaboration, a culture of constant learning, all right, and partnerships with relevant stakeholders, all right, to be able to drive success. So if you basically need to partner with, say, maybe a digital platform owner, why not? If you need to partner with radio or, you know, any of the other channels, or even outside of the industry, I think we should, you know, look at doing that. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of these collaborations as we go into 2023. In summary, just run you through the 6 trends that I've spoken about. Number 1 is the fact that elections defy the trends for this year. Out of home is going to be driving media inflation for this year as well, even though there's going to be a growth in media investments, okay? The third point is, in the attention economy era, out of home has a huge potential to play big, you know, and sustain its relevance. Number 4 is brands will be demanding of innovations from us. And number 5 is there's going to be an increased interest in bridge formats as marketers scramble to find a way to measure and track effectiveness on the out-of-home platform. And lastly is the fact that collaboration is going to be very critical to succeed as we go into 2023. And this collaboration should be across boards and divides. Parting thoughts would be that the truth is historical data may not be the most reliable form for planning in this day and age that we find ourselves, where it's a highly fast-paced environment, you know. So relying strictly on what has happened or worked in the past might not do you justice in this year. What's critical is to be bold, all right, to be brave, to be willing to embrace collaboration and innovation with creativity. This is definitely what would ensure that, you know, as a business owner, as a partner, as a marketing professional in the out-of-home space, we stay abreast and get the best of what 2023 holds for us. Thank you very much. And at this point, I'm going to call it a close or a wrap with my own presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. That's really insightful, and there's so much to take out, you know, from it. And without much ado, we'll just go ahead. Please let me mention that our panelists, kindly turn on your video, you know, when you are actually addressing any question. Thank you very much. Okay, without wasting our time at all, I'll just go ahead. talking about the one of the takeout from Emmanuel's presentation would be OH to drive, media inflation. This is a big worry because I know that historically it's always been very difficult, for the out-of-home media owners to, raise the rate of campaign. If you would like to talk in this, I really appreciate you to expatiate on that, Mr. Temitope Ayanbade, the challenges that the out-of-home owners actually have with, raising their rates. Wouldn't that, kind of like make the media spend in OH like reduce? Thank you. Can you unmute your mic, please?
I think I was muted. I didn't know I was muted.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for that very insightful presentation, right? And I also want to thank, sorry. All right, so sorry, I got distracted a little bit, sorry. The landscape which Emmanuel had, ran us through, right, really, give us a lot of insights as to what are going to drive this inflation in 2023. And one of the reasons is that, the high cost of things and the dwindling economic factors, right, would continue even after the election. That's not going to be overemphasized, right? So lots of things on out-of-home are driven by operational expenses, so which will definitely increase the cost of things. And we started to see a lot of rate increase from some of our media suppliers, right? So this would continue to happen until we have a stable economy, right? But critically for us is that whilst we understand that OPEX and CAPEX will affect the cost of things, we also need to start looking for a way of measurement. Because my worry basically is not about the cost of things, especially out of home going up. My worry is that how do I commensurate, the high costs with the return on investment that my clients, stand to gain from this. So it brings me to the worry of measurements and attribution on out of home, especially when you're looking at out of home vis-a-vis other media channels, right? You're able to track, GRPs, you're able to track impressions on other channels, but it has, over the years, there's been a challenge for out of home to be able to measure these things in Nigeria. So for us, what we need to start worrying about is how do we then start measuring things to give real-time results and measurements to our clients, right? In the area of attributions, in the area of ratings and all of that. So that's my worry. My worry basically is not about the rates, because this is an economic driven cost, and that will not change anytime soon, because the major indicators of the economy, it's already dwindled. So we need to start worrying about measurements, and that is where we as practitioners need to start coming in. Like Emmanuel had said, collaborations will really help us a lot, because we start seeing, inputs from some of our global partners. They're already importing tools and resources that can help us, mitigate the issue of measurement and attribution in Nigeria. And some of our partners too, in Nigeria too, have started to do things in that line. And that'll be
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, what Temitope is basically saying that, even if we have to increase the rates, even if the cost has to be higher, can we justify that? I think that actually makes sense, can we justify, what we're asking for? Can we measure? Can we deliver? And that would take me to the next question, in terms of inflation. I think that the creativity and the innovation, that we've seen in the industry in the past year, has really shown that, we are actually ready, for that next leap. So, Mr. Chudi Obiora, I would really appreciate you, to talk on, what we have seen in terms of creativity and innovation in the past year in the OH landscape.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank the conveners of OOH Academy. I'm really grateful to be part of this session. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so without a doubt, it's very important to understand that technology has definitely changed the way we do business, especially when it comes to OOH. Several years ago, what was trending was the use of barcode technology to be able to bridge the gap with maybe those who use smartphones and billboards. So you're going through a specific location and your billboards that have the technology are able to communicate with smartphones and send out signals. In a way, this is like geofencing. So there's a communication with specific brand and you know, the cell phone users or those who have smartphones. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much of a gravitation towards that area. And what we see is a lot of LED sites that are coming up and new designs, but there doesn't seem to be an integration with users on the other hand. You know, so you have these fanciful looking LEDs and, you know, install screens, which is marvelous, by the way, but there is no communication, no communication with the end user and the screen itself. So there's a disconnect. So I think we really have a long way to go. And maybe this has to do with training, maybe getting people from outside to come and teach us more on how we can integrate technology with billboards so that we can be able to reduce and bring that gap forward. And there's a lot more communication with end users and billboards. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, please.
Yes, I quite understand. You know, so you know, over the years, we've all talked about, you know, geotagging. We talked about we've talked about geotagging. We've talked about integration. We've talked about integration across the different channels. We're talking of OH, radio, TV, online, but we've just not really seen a lot of traction on that. And we're believing that going into 2023, you know, that might actually change. So I'd actually like to direct that to Mr. Tope Sani-Wahaab, like how do we take the next step? It seems like we're just stuck in the peripheral. We're not really moving, you know, forward in terms of, you know, data measurement, integration, in terms of tech generally, Mr. Tope.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me here. I think with respect to integration, measurements, and probably new ways of doing things in out of home in 2023, to be honest, I think we're on the right direction. I think there are things that are coming up in 2023 that are pretty exciting that I've seen, from the use of 3D technology on LED boards, how to use them, how to integrate some of those elements into our LED boards, and how we will now start to directly communicate with the end users. I think we'll start to see a lot of those kind of trends in 2023. I've heard a lot about how do we measure, how do we start to track if our campaigns are effectively being deployed, or rather, if our campaigns are actually reaching the milestones that the clients want us to achieve. From an audience measurement point of view, I know we are still not there yet, but compared to where we're coming from 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think we're doing better. I mean, rather than always say this board is strategic, I think right now we are actually going towards where we can actually put some numbers. And I like to say, I beg to say that we have started putting some science to the madness that we call out of home, right? Where we are able to actually speak in terms of audience numbers, what the board is really delivering, as against saying this board is strategic, it blah, 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 right? So we are now able to put some numbers, especially when we start to partner with people like, I don't know if they're on the call, but everybody kind of knows who I'm trying to talk about. But when we partner with some guys that are brought in some technology, where we're able to use technology to drive innovation in our industry. So in a nutshell, I would say we're on the right track. I think we now have partners that are willing to collaborate with us to take us to the next level in terms of out of home. And I think 2020 is going to be an exciting year for innovation, for technology, and for audience measurement in our industry. So we're in exciting times.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that input. Really appreciated. And I see your line of thought. And do we think that, you know, the environment in which we find ourselves, that is for instance, Nigeria, actually encourage some kind of innovation and creativity that we see in other climes, you know, for instance, in South Africa? I mean, we've seen some, for instance, the Audacity at Lekki, you know, that actually created so much wave online. A lot of people will still complain that, oh, that's such a distraction, that would cause accident, that would cause, you know, people that are driving and all that. So our environment actually impact on some of the, you know, creativity level that we can deploy. Do you see that changing? Do you see, you know, even the common person welcoming of some of the innovation that can come up? So Mr. Temitope Ayanbade, if you can take that, that would be appreciated.
So thank you, Anna. So for me, right, I've always been at the forefront of driving innovation, right, especially as it relates to out of home, because I've always been that person who's driven by innovation. And for me, I don't think innovation has to be technology driven before it is innovation. Innovation is that thing that stands you out, because as we are already seeing, there's already a lot of fragmentation in the out-of-home space. And the headache of most of us as planners right now is, how do I now cut through the clutter of this fragmentation? And one of the things that we think can happen is to drive attention planning that Emmanuel talked about earlier. And by attention planning, we want to be able to drive visual engagement for your audience, especially when you look at it vis-a-vis the attention span, you know, reducing even up to 8 seconds, right? And out of home, as for now, what we then need to do is to find an innovative way of driving your messages within 3.5 seconds, right? And that you need a lot of innovations to be able to drive. Our environment clearly, you know, supports different kind of innovation, either technology-driven innovations, or it could be environmentally driven innovations. You can just, so for instance, I was talking to a colleague of mine 3 days ago, and there's this board at Abule Egba. This a cube, it's in the form of a cube. And for me, and I said to my colleague, and I said, if you want to drive innovation, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be new builds, right? It has to, it could just be a shape you see somewhere, and you just look for an innovative way of using it differently from the way the people have seen it before. So for us, our environment clearly supports this kind of innovations, and there are so many things we can do. And like Tokpe said earlier, right, technology is still going to drive it further, right? Because we've started to see different creatives like 3D animations. We've started to see brands leveraging this kind of creativity to drive their messages. I've seen Fairways. I've also seen a lot of, like the 3D, the drone deployments that Amazon did. Those are innovations that are technology driven. And a lot of them are still going to happen. Innovation is going to be a key, you know, supporter of creativity in out of home and innovation. Okay. But it doesn't have to just be technology alone. Okay. And I'm always thinking about other ways of doing that.
Thank you very much. I'll take that to Mr. Chudi. Are you 100% with Temitope? Because I do believe that there's some things, you know, for instance, in my company that we've tried to do, and either last Spark or last, I've been like, oh no, that's so disruptive. So Mr. Chudi, I really like to have your thoughts on this.
Well, look, I got to say that Temitope is spot on. But I'll also defer in some levels. You know, the truth about it is that technology has come to stay. And when you compare measurements in terms of how advertising gets down to the end user, there are different ways that they can calculate this stuff. So most billboards abroad, they have trackers on them that can at least count the amount of vehicles that are passing by. And some of these trackers can also go to the point of determining those who have Wi-Fi or those who are able to access the internet as they go by. Now, the technology that will enable them to communicate with their smartphones, I'm sure that will be in the works. So without a doubt, technology has come to stay. But I do understand what Temitope is saying. In this part of the world, Nigeria, for example, where there's constant power problems here and there, technology is always lagging. You're not going to wait for technology to come knocking on your door. You have to be innovative with what you have. You could use laser technology, for example, to advertise a specific brand in a specific area, and that might not have to be that creative in its way. You're just using light to be able to attract attention. So I'll say it's a 50-50 thing, and that's why I was gracious enough to say that Temitope is still right. So don't hit me with a stick, bros.
No, I'm not saying. I just wanted to get your own opinion on that. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. So So one of the things that I've actually heard over the years, and I've been thinking about it, okay, when is this going to kick off? Mr. Temitope, Sani-Wahaab, people say geo-targeting, programmatic. Which do you think delivers better and how?
To be honest, I think it's a combination of the two. Each one has its role, has a significant role to play in what we currently do in the out-of-home space. From geo-targeting your audience to catch them at the right place at the right time. I think they both have a significant role to play. If you have to scale it up, I'm not sure which one you want to put on a higher pedestal, but I think they both have a significant role to play, depending on how they are used, really. It's just up to us in terms of the strategy behind the thinking of how we want to apply these two elements to deliver on certain KPIs, right? So I just think that's how we'll have to go about it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We actually have, that's really appreciated, by the way. We actually have Mr. Miguel from Boardroom in Spain, and he actually wants to weigh in on this. So if he can actually just come in now. Hi, Miguel.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Okay, first of all, thanks so much for the webinar so far. It's been extremely productive. Thanks a lot for the insights from the panelists. I'm very happy to hear about the improvements in the audience measurement side of things, because this is a global challenge. This is nothing specific about Nigeria only. I work for Boardroom, which is the technology leader for digital out-of-home. We've been supporting the out-of-home industry for almost 20 years. And we basically invented programmatic for digital out-of-home 5 years ago. We started in the United States and UK. And we've seen that, especially the last couple of years since the pandemic, programmatic trading exploding in multiple countries, different markets all across the world, including African markets. I'm a little bit surprised that Nigeria, having so much screens, so many digital out-of-home screens compared with other countries, even in Europe, hasn't yet embraced the programmatic model. We've run a couple of campaigns, programmatic campaigns over there, and the buyers were lacking inventory. There was not enough screens who wanted to collaborate with us. Perhaps we were not speaking with the right people, but I wanted to throw that to the panelists here to share that globally in very different markets, smaller countries, with far less inventory and a less developed industry on the buy side, programmatic has been working very well. The main benefits are obviously the automatization. And for example, being able to get international demand. A buyer can now buy from Nigeria, from South Africa, from many different markets with just a couple of clicks. They don't need to pick up the phone or send emails to different meter owners all around. That by itself has a lot of value. While we need audience measurement to be as accurate as possible, in many countries in the world, they don't have a very solid audience measurement system, and the model still works. Any type of traffic data that you can provide will be good enough to get started. This will keep on growing, this will keep on developing, but for now, I wouldn't wait for audience data to be perfect or for the model or the technology to be extremely accurate. Simply being able to trade programmatically is a huge step forward. And of course, we will keep on improving, but I wouldn't wait too much. I think you're fully ready to embrace the programmatic model. Sorry, I spoke a little bit too much. I just wanted to share some thoughts because
Thank you very
from
much.
abroad based on our international experience. Thanks so much for everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you. We really appreciate. So if you have a question, you can drop it on the chat bar and I'll just read it to the panelists. That's for the participants. Okay, yeah, so I'm just going to go straight to Mr. Chudi again. I mean, I was very happy. I was very happy to see that, OH would be the game changer, that we are still very much relevant, because, when you hear the forecast, when you hear the prediction, you hear people say OH is dying, OH is going to be buried, but, it's very, very interesting during Emmanuel's presentation to see. So, I'd like to have your thoughts further on that.
Okay, before I delve into your question, I just wanted to comment on what the last speaker, Miguel, spoke about. And it is obvious to see that government regulation is so important in this aspect, because he was so spot on as to how technology can be used to link various digital boards. So a campaign is activated by the click of a button. But unfortunately, when an environment does not promote collaboration, it kind of like promotes non-collaboration, whereby you won't be able to, for example, if you were able to be part of a network from a foreign agency that wanted to, by the click of a button, activate digital media across several boards, the agency involved, the Lagos agency involved, or any state agency involved, should be able to give discounts because of that. And it promotes the industry. It means that people, foreign companies, can be able to be part of this process and drive more business. So I think that's something that needs to be looked into, whereby government agencies can find a way of reducing the bill so as to promote collaboration amongst industry practitioners.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if I know I didn't answer your question.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. You said before you do that, you want to mention.
Yes. Okay, could you please repeat that again so that I could just.
Okay, I just said that being an out-of-home person, a media owner, that I was very excited, because the predictions and the forecast say, OH is going under and all that. But it was good to hear, that, this is not so, that we're actually one of the important players, in the coming time. So I just wanted to have your, contribution on that.
Okay, well, the truth is that outdoor can never go away. It's impossible to go away. It will never. I mean, you walk out on the street, you see signs that direct you on where to go. And if there are brands that are on these signs, then it automatically reinforces the essence of that particular brand. The only thing is that it does not really engage you in terms of direct communication to get more involvement, But it's never going to go away. It's going to continue to increase. Unfortunately, as the presenter, I'm sorry, I cannot remember your name, but the person who did the presentation was spot on to say that inflation will take a heavy chunk of ad spend this year, especially, the fact that there's a big election that is coming up. So who is willing to spend when election is taken forefront? And then at the end of the day, you see the statistics with regards to inflation. The numbers are not looking pretty. And obviously forecasts regarding the cost of advertising, diesel, all other costs associated with putting billboards or LED formats out there. I mean, the costs are increasing. So although you would see an increase in terms of desire to advertise on traditional media, the cost of advertising will continue to go up. And there now becomes a decision, how do we manage those costs? And I guess the speaker has done very well to educate us on that.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really great to hear. So we have Mr. Promise Odu, is a business unit director at OMD, and he wants to weigh in on the industry's readiness for, innovation So we can have you now, Mr. Promise. Hi, Promise.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
I thought I would just come in here to listen. I actually stumbled on this. This is quite interesting. Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think for me, from what I've seen, walking down here in Nigeria, and what I've also seen happening across the globe, right? Innovation is the only way we can distinguish ourselves. Okay. We just spoke about out of home a while ago, programmatic out of home, and I mean I saw a case from Ireland where an out of home was used to target people for blood donation, and about 101 persons were saved because programmatic out of home was deployed, to democratize that audience, to remind them of the time, that they have booked the appointment with the hospitals very close to them. And out of home followed until those number of people, honored their the appointment that they have with the hospitals for blood donation. Okay, it is a very fantastic study that I think we should look at. So for me, programmatic out of home has come to stay. We have no choice but to begin to look at interactive media. We have no choice but to begin to look at a model that drives data, a model that helps us to target the audience more effectively, a platform that gives real-time, data and real-time interactions with the audience. You just cannot. In fact, programmatic out of home goes as far as even giving you weekly, daily or weekend interactions, campaign real-time data, efficiency management, data management, and all that, with the audience. And that has become very key because, like Tope said earlier, we're talking about attention planning. So attention planning is where the whole world is heading to. And that is because of, Microsoft said that the attention span of the average consumer is nosediving to about 8 seconds, and you have just about 3.5 seconds to make an impact, because that same audience is exposed to over 10,000 ads, depending on the country where you're coming from. And so imagine you processing all of those propositions and still having time to, to look at these ads and begin to, take some action. So it's a very difficult thing to do. Today's consumer has become very elusive, and using, reach models, awareness models, cannot actually effectively target today's audience. All right, so we are moving towards performance marketing and precision marketing. And because of that, innovation becomes very key. If you look at what is going on globally, I mean, thank God that you guys are into the out-of-home business. We are all into it. And I'm sure a lot of us must have seen the liquid billboard innovation by Adediran. When they discovered about 33% of women do not like to swim in public. And I mean, it's 3 times worse in the Middle East. And yet they had a swimsuit that I wanted to sell to women in the Middle East. So do you begin to slot in classical ads on TV, to these women? How will you be able to sell, swimsuits to women who cannot swim in public? And of course, because of their religious beliefs, it's almost even impossible for them to do in the Middle East. But look at what the liquid billboard did for them. So that's innovation. And I'm sure it wasn't just built by just an out-of-home company. It wasn't just built by Adidas. I mean, there was a meaningful collaboration, to enable that happen. Okay. I remember that Tope also talked about the drones that we saw in Lagos a few months ago. Okay. And those drones were about 500 drones, that were built. I mean, this couldn't have happened without, collaboration as well. So I think for me, Innovation is something that we cannot actually, there's just no way. Recently, I was involved in Light Award as a judge, and I was asking them, my colleagues from different countries in the world, that is it possible for us to begin to look at something that is peculiar to Nigeria? They said no, because whatever you do in Nigeria should be replicated somewhere. So Nigeria has become part of the global space, and we cannot just but begin to see how we can connect to this moving train.
Thank you very much for that
Sorry,
contribution.
Anna, if I may add.
Okay.
I think collaboration, like all the speakers have said, is very key. And I think also collaboration locally with other forms of advertising, other channels. So your PRs, your experiential agencies, TV, radio. How do you plan a holistic 360 innovation approach, right? Where you leverage both all media channels or the major media channels. Say you leverage radio, leverage TV, leverage out of home, experiential to bring an experience to life, using with out of home being the key driver of that innovation, being the lead for that innovation is very, very important. So by the time we open our minds to collaborate across multi-channels, I think our outputs will be a lot better. And that will bring to life a lot of the things that we have discussed here on this talk.
Thank you very much. I mean, we are all here, and all the representatives of the media owners were here, and we're taking it to our management, trust me, in terms of collaboration, to ensure that we serve our clients and brands better. So we're going to take a couple of questions. I've not seen any drop, but before then, I would like if you can briefly talk, all of our panelists, if you can briefly talk about, the election trend, this year and its impact on the OH outlook, just briefly. Thank you very much. You can go in any order, please.
I'm not a politician anyway, but I live in Nigeria, and like Emmanuel said, I don't live under the rock. We've seen that this year, it's basically, so it used to be 2-horse race, right? But today, we're seeing, if not a 4-horse race, right? It's APC, PDP versus the Nigerian youth versus the Kwankwaso and the G5s, right? So that's where we are as of today. But what I see basically in the OH landscape with regards to political spend these days is because there's a whole lot of things affecting the politicians from bringing out the money they've stolen over the years. We don't see that kind of rush of dollars and naira right anymore.
You didn't just say that. You didn't just say that, right?
No, I just said it with my full chest.
I support Temitope. You're not alone. Don't worry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chudi. Yeah. So a whole lot of things, right? It can be attributed to what would affect the spend in the political space. We understand that over the years in previous elections, we've seen how our politicians, spend money, the dollars they've stolen, how they shared about during the elections.
But you're being recorded, you'll be guided. You're being recorded.
So now a lot of that is not going to happen, especially in the 2023 election. That's not going to happen, and you would not see a lot of money being thrown around like it used to be. But one thing that I've seen, and one of the trends that I've noticed, with the politicians, right, to mitigate such spend right now is that they're collaborating with media owners, right, to be able to drive their messages either as at pro bono or probably at a JV, so depending on the kind of collaboration that they're having currently, right? But I see that they are using that opportunity to drive this spend. But with regards to actual spend in Naira and Kobo, we might not see that playing out as it used to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they are looking for other ways, of driving their messages, using their goodwill and network.
Okay. Okay. Over to your namesake, Mr. Dr. Sani-Wahaab. Let's have your take, please. Okay.
Sorry, stepped out for a minute.
Okay, all right. Yes, let's have Mr. Chudi. Let's have Mr. Chudi, so we can then round up, because I've not seen any question from anyone here for the panelists.
Sorry, did you ask me a question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, just general comment on the election trend and its impacts on the OH outlook this year.
Definitely. Temitope again, they hit the nail on the head. There seems to be for some reason, the government has been meticulous in trying to restrict the free flow of funds, as it used to be used as a tool to be able to penetrate all areas in terms of basically using the money to get whatever response they need from the populace. And because of the measures that the central bank has brought in, it has restricted the ulterior motives of some of these politicians. However, what seems to be so important to me, what is so noted to me, is they failed to look at the population of those individuals that were really focused on social and digital media. So, for example, if you are from a different party in a different state, it's almost impossible for you to erect a billboard in that state. And this is where social media has come in. And when you have a certain population of the people, for example, maybe if I'm correct, about 70% of registered voters are under the age of 40. If I am correct, under the age of 40, and most of them use social media. And in a state like Lagos, where you don't see any other advertising than the current ruling party, it shows you that there is a disconnect. You understand? So when you tie in that relationship, social media has been able to take advantage of that lapse, and in terms of directing the attention towards those demographics, preventing billboards, the capacity of billboards to be able to target effectively.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's really great. So thank you to all our panelists.
If I can add, if you can allow me, Hannah, to just add, something briefly on,
okay,
the trajectory.
Briefly, please. Thank you.
Very briefly. Because I've been to Port Harcourt, I traveled to Ohiare, then I passed through Imo between December and now. And so what you find is just the usuals, where out of home seems to be the only platform that is being used, but not being used innovatively. What you see in most countries of the world, which is something that is also a challenge to our industry. Maybe that's why some people think that out of home is also dying in a way, because I didn't see any form of innovation. I mean, these political parties have got manifestos. So what they do in developed economies is that you could have, LED boards or some in-mall boards where consumers can actually scan and have copies of the manifestos of these parties. Okay, so it's built into the LED boards, is built into the in-mall, LEDs. So it's not just, you are not looking at advertising message, but there's a editorial value to the extent that, you have access to, the manifestos of these political parties. But we didn't find that. So in as much as, yes, I also do not believe entirely that government, yes, they restricted funding to some extent. There were policies that discouraged them from, having access to funds. But I tell you the truth, some of these funds were given to individuals to persuade them to persuade other people. So we may not have seen the funds spent on TV. We may not have seen the funds spent on out of home. We may not have seen so much spent on radio, but all of these monies have been passed into people's pockets, to more or less sway them to convince other people. So the only way we can grow and get maybe politicians or even brands to spend more is begin to look at how do we turn out of home, not only as an awareness platform, but a platform that drives utilitarian value to the consumer. At time will fail us for me to show some examples of what is being done in other clients where you see out of home being used, when it's raining, someone can actually run, and then it's still displaying a brand, but it becomes a platform for you to actually cover yourself when it's raining. You can actually use out of home to create steps where people can climb. So I think we have to begin to think of how do we get people to spend money, by turning out of home into a utilitarian, platform, not just an awareness.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. That is very much, appreciated. So I'm going to take just one question as we are, short of time. To have the panelists actually take this, and from Korede Ladejobi says, we've noticed over the time that brands tend to either suspend or slow down campaigns, activities, most especially months before an election. Is it the right thing to do? Take halt the use of these brands. So any of our panelists can take this, and then I'll hand over to Emmanuel for to round up. Thank you very much.
Anna, please, apologies. Can you take the question again?
Okay, I'll take it. We've noticed over the time that brands tend to suspend or slow down campaigns, activities, most especially months before an election. Is it the right thing to do, taking into consideration that consumers don't halt the use of products, during election period?
Well, in my experience, this is true, especially when you have to also take cognizance of what is happening within the environment. So what year was that? Was it 2015, where the election, the environment was a bit hot after the presidential elections, right? When we didn't know whether the incumbent president was going to give it up or fight for the elections that he had just lost. So yes, it happens. You also have to take cognizance that some brands, the calendar year, or rather the financial year, might not necessarily be a Jan to December. Some are actually June to May of the next year, vis-a-vis. So in some cases, beginning of the year, some brands are actually just planning. So maybe that's why it appears that they are quiet. But in some cases, Q1 is actually the end of the year for some brands. And you see that some of those brands now are usually very active. So I think it's a mix of the two, in terms of some brands being active and some brands not being as active, whether it falls into an election year or not. So it's just for us to understand what brands are doing, and everybody's trying to also watch what's going to happen in the political scene and the temperature of the country as regards to the elections. So I think it will favor some and it will not favor some.
Thank you so much. Our appreciation.
So Anna, if I may just speak briefly to that, right? So we understand that during elections, right, the projection of every advertiser is that there will be advertising clutter during that period, because they feel that a lot of advertising messages from politicians will be on the airspace, will be locked on the billboards and everything. So they feel that their brand messaging will be lost, during the period. Hence the reason why some of them, decide to, reduce the advertising spend, or even, stop advertising spend during that period. But usually, like Tope had said, it's not cast in stone. So there are peculiar ways, or there are strategic ways of going about all these things. So if you think, oh, this particular advertising channel will be full of clutter, you can then look for other ways, of still driving your brand messages. It doesn't necessarily have to carry, at that period, maybe then you might be pursuing performance for your brand rather than, actual brand building, right? Rather than creating awareness, just driving some sort of, subtle sales and all of that. So that is how to get about that.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, really appreciate it. So I'm going to hand over to Emmanuel Adediran. He has, a couple of things he wants to say, and then I would also appreciate if he takes the last question I have here from Ogale Mafuru, which says, how will OH practitioners mitigate the impact of recessionary pressure projected to rise this year? Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. I think I'll take the question and then I can just share my own thoughts on what a lot of the speakers have said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, well, not straightforward, I would say. It's the solution, in my own view, is to be innovative and creative, all right? And that comes from a mindset of being a value-driven partner, okay? I can tell you for a fact, right, that sitting in the agency or even in the marketing department of most clients are people looking out for answers, right? We want to continually deliver results, all right? And partners that help us achieve that result are the ones that we tend to gravitate towards. I mean, you hear people say, oh, business is bad, but in the same market, in the same industry, you have some people that seem to be overfed and are probably even misbehaving. If you check it at the end of the day, it's likely because of the value that they bring to the table. So rather than, be worried or afraid, I would say look inwards, okay, and see how you can create value for the people that you serve or provide, some form of services to. As long as value is on the table, I can guarantee you that you don't need to worry whether you are, the environment is in recession or not, because like someone said, there would always be, paraphrasing now anyway, there would always be a need to market, because somebody wants to sell something to another person and is thinking of, the best way to go about it. So innovations, value creation, and solutions are one of the things I would say, or some of the things rather that I would say should be on the minds of whoever is thinking of how to navigate these murky waters that we are definitely heading into, or we are already in. I hope that addresses the question. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're going to round up now.
Yes. So in conclusion, really, a couple of things have been said by the different speakers who were quite spot on in the analysis and recommendations. What I would just say in conclusion is, beyond all that has been said, it's important that we embrace the culture of collaboration and innovation that's necessary for creativity, okay? And that's really what we need to win in this market. Speaking to the industry, speaking about to the out-of-home industry, this collaboration is not even about just the external, even within, okay? What I have observed, and pardon me if I'm going to be a bit direct here, is there's this dog-eat-dog mentality when it comes to how we play in the outdoor space. And it really doesn't have to be that way, right? A little partnering would not, hurt anybody. But having this mindset or this thinking of the collective good is what I think is missing to a large extent in out of home, right? Because there's really nothing that says we shouldn't be running programmatic advertising. But then again, I'm sure if you think about the business implications of that, okay, for a partner, maybe or someone that has maybe a big site that is bringing in some guaranteed level of investments, retailing needs will definitely shrink the ability to make big money or what have you. But you can think about this, as a necessary sacrifice, for the greater good. But then again, I think I'll just leave that to the individual stakeholders. We need to collaborate if we're going to move the needle and move or be in the place where our contemporaries in more developed markets and clients are. And it's really that collaboration and the mindset of innovation for value that would help get us there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm sure that everyone on here have had a fantastic time today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your contribution. And of course, the takeout generally, the purpose of this is to ensure that, we have a robust industry, an industry that answer and that solve problems for, their consumers. So we'll take that. And we hear the dog eat dog, word in the OH, and I'm sure that to get better, these are some of the issues that OAN, that is the Outdoor Advertising Association of Nigeria, has been trying to address. And yes, everyone, that would be it for today. Until the next time, my name once again is Hannah Ohiare. I work with Global Out of Home Media, also known as Global Outdoor Systems. And I wish you the very best in this year and a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank
Thanks
you all.
for
Thank you all very
academy.
much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chudi. Thank you.